Welcome back to the show. Many thanks for staying with us. The Mental Health Authority and other stakeholders in the health sector say Parliament must, as a matter of urgency, amend the narcotic drug law to make tramadol an illicit drug. The authority in a statement said the law should also be amended to give stiffer punishment to importers. We'll bring you details of that statement shortly, but as you know, tramadol, or tramol, as some people know it, is a prescription drug for treatment purposes. Recent media reports have highlighted its abuse, especially by the youth. It can have serious effect on the brain, the mind, the heart, respiratory or breathing system, and can lead to death in some cases. My colleague Erastus Asari Donko spent some time with users in Kumasi. Here is that report.
5 pharmacy shops and 52 over-the-counter operators are due to be hauled before a disciplinary committee soon in connection with the sale and distribution of narcotic painkiller Tramadol. About 35 of the over-the-counter sellers have been found to be stocking and selling the drug. The revelation prompted the Pharmacy Council to organize a public education forum for over 800 drug shops in the Ashanti region. Narcotic painkiller, tramadol, and other abused drugs are sold in hideouts known as ghettos, drinking bars, and on the street by peddlers in contravention of existing regulations. Combined doses of 125 to 300 milligrams of the prescription drug have been found to be taken with caffeinated beverage and marijuana. Mr. Rauf says the Pharmacy Council has started engaging the security agencies for soups to clamp down on illegal dealers.
So from the ministry point of view, all the stakeholders, the FDA, Food and Drug Authority, the NACOB, Pharmacy Council, we are having a serious engagement periodically. In fact, weekly we meet to strategize. Initially, we're not having a strong legislative instrument or penalty codes for the police to stand on and prosecute. But for now, Pharmacy Council have developed everything and handed over to the police. Very soon, a lot of facilities that are caught in the act are facing disciplinary committee very soon. Pharmacies and over-the-counter facilities. They will be hauled to the disciplinary committee of Pharmacy Council to answer questions. Depending on the gravity, some could even lose their licenses. In fact, in the law or the regulation, you can even be sentenced.
Christian Kwao is the Ashanti Regional Manager of the Pharmacy Council.
Codeine is abused in Ghana, and that is some of the things that we've picked on the ground when we went talking to the youth.
Any further details? How it's been abused? Who is abusing it?
The youth especially. And codeine comes in the form of cough syrup, and they call it gutter water. They take it, they ingest it, high dosage, and then they get a high feeling. Some even go as far as mixing it with the tramadol so that they get another effect altogether.
Obviously, tramadol is not the only drug being abused. Now, the Mental Health Authority and, as we indicated, the other stakeholders, including the Food and Drugs Authority and the Narcotics Control Board, have been meeting last week, and they are calling on government to attach some more seriousness in dealing with abuse of these drugs. So let me take you through some of the information they put out in the statement that was signed by Chief Executive of the Mental Health Authority, Dr. Kwesi Osei. So here is what they say. I'll bring you much more on that later. But basically, what you need to pick up from those details in that graphic is that they're talking about availability of the drug. They say this is something that it's not even an open secret. It's so obvious to ignore. The availability of the drugs and the accessibility of the drugs. They're asking that NACOB should, as a matter of urgency, have better regulation, if you like, of this drug. And of course, they're asking the FDA and other regulatory authorities to have full access to containers when it comes to importation of this. I have in the studio with me Dr. Eugene Dordoye, who is a psychiatrist and hospital director of the NACOB Psychiatric Hospital. He's also the focal person for the Ministry of Health on Drug Abuse. Dr. Dordoye, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. So I understand that there's a particular meeting that's ongoing. Can you tell us a bit more about that meeting and what we're supposed to get out of it?
There was a meeting last week on 10th May, and there's a meeting today and tomorrow, all in a bid to get stakeholders in this particular thing, get a national solution or an approach to solving the problem. The challenge we've had is that different agencies are taking part of the problem and solving part, but if we don't have a holistic approach to it, we are not going to solve the problem. Drug abuse, I mean, when we talk about drug, that includes alcohol. So there are two-pronged approach to managing drug abuse. We have the demand reduction, we have the supply reduction. So the supply reduction is the part that we enforce the laws of importation and exportation, of who can market what and whether it is legal to kind of like possess a drug or not. So that is what we do for supply reduction. That is, we want to reduce the availability of the drug, and that unfortunately is what Food and Drug Board and NACOB essentially is doing now. But that does not solve the problem.
Right, because now you're talking about controlling the availability of the drug. Yeah. Now, was it about last week or last 2 weeks, I spoke with the African Region Director for WHO, and she herself is a physician. And one of the things that she said is that in our attempt to control the abuse of Tramadol, for example, we should also be careful so that you don't deny people who genuinely need the drug because you're clamping down on the availability. Yeah. How do we strike that balance as well?
That is the next thing I was going to, about demand reduction. Currently, after the world has gotten over HIV and AIDS, the next HIV, the next epidemic we have is opiates. So opiates are generally painkillers, which are more or less the last kind of resort for painkiller, apart from the one that will put you to sleep, which we call anesthesia. So the opiates are, we have the natural ones in our bodies, which are the endorphins, which reduce pain in our bodies. Then we have one from opium plants, which is mainly in Afghanistan, Middle East, Thailand area there. So we can have the opium plant give us things like morphine, pethidine. Then we have the semi-synthetic. Then we have the fully synthetic one like Tramadol, codeine. The challenge we have, or the West, US, Canada, and Western Europe have, is that their young people are abusing these drugs and they are dying. So currently in the US, actually, if you have an overdose of drug, you can walk into a hospital and they will help you. We don't have the antidote yet in Ghana. So if we get our young people abusing it and taking overdoses, we can only watch them die. We cannot help them. We can provide what we call a supportive system. So these are painkillers. So the challenge is that how do we rationalize or the drug which are used for pain? There are people who have cancers. We can't do much about them. We know eventually they will succumb to the cancer, and they're in so much pain. These people need pain medicines, and for them we need them to have enough pain drugs. People are going through surgery. I mean, it's painful after surgery. Your body has been cut. There's pain. They need the pain medicine. So what we are doing in the country, unfortunately, is that we do not give enough painkillers to those who need the pain, and rather the other people who don't have pain are using the painkillers, the opiates, Tramadol, codeine, which are easily available on our market, not for pain, but for the side effects of these drugs. Not every side effect is an adverse effect. Adverse effects are those that affect us badly. So the side effects of tramadol include it delays orgasm. So young people...
It delays orgasm?
It delays orgasm.
I see.
It also causes insomnia, meaning you don't sleep at night. So when young people who are naturally strong, okay, take tramadol, they will have a delay in orgasm. That is why they say they can go for long journeys. I believe abusers understand.
Yeah.
So, and they unfortunately add alcohol and caffeine or energy drinks. That is the most dangerous. Because what is going to happen here is that alcohol will increase your libido, your desire to have sex. The tramadol would delay your orgasm, so you can have sex for a long time. You've taken in energy drink, which gives you the ready energy to have this. So they are eventually going to have exhaustion without knowing they are tired. And that is deadly. So we can get people dying from it. And when you use tramadol or the opiate for a long time, and you stop using them, you get withdrawal. Withdrawal is something like hangover after drinking. And the one for tramadol and or opiates and alcohol, they are medical emergencies, which unfortunately we are not looking at. So our young people are dying out of this. And with the amount of tramadol that the doses which are important, sometimes up to 5 times the normal dose we should give. And somebody will take 2 or 3 of that.
Which is what brings me to what I wanted to find out about. There have been series of meetings between yourself and other stakeholders, as we've reported on several times. But what are the clear strategies you are proposing beyond asking Parliament, for example, to change the laws, which usually doesn't happen that fast?
Yes. And if it doesn't happen that fast, we are only waiting to get to the level of America and Canada, where we can see young people dying on the streets. Then we'll go and panic and make a law. The challenge is that Narcotic Control Board controls they control illicit drugs. These opiates are all narcotics. Then Food and Drug Authority control the illicit ones. So if you bring in tramadol, which is more than 100 milligrams, already it is an illicit dose of illicit drug. So who then should enforce it? Is it the FDA or is it the Food and Drug Authority or NACOB? The law is not clear on that. So what we are proposing is that NACOB should totally be changed, maybe into a commission or into an authority, where they have the tentacles to also arrest people who deal in illicit drugs that we know can cause addiction. Because Narcotic Control Board is the only agency, in Ghana now, that look at the both sides of the coin. The Food and Drug Authority look at the supply side, who is bringing in the drug, who is using it. But the Mental Health Authority look at the people who are addicted to it and we treat them. Food and Drug, the Narcotic Control Board has both the supply demand department and the demand, they have the demand and the supply department. So that agency should be strengthened such that they will be able to effect arrests, search all containers, not only for cocaine and heroin, but for now we have prescription drug abuse, and it's an epidemic. Epidemic means that we have at least 5% of our adult population using it.
So this is something we know for a fact from research.
Something that we know from a fact.
That we have an epidemic on our hands.
Unfortunately, that is the next challenge. We don't have data.
Exactly the point that the WHO rep made. She said that what we need to do as a country is to establish the extent of abuse.
Myself and other people have been trained to have a national drug observatory. Our government has not done that yet. We need to know who is using the drug. What are they using? Because don't forget that it's not only tramadol. Tramadol is the one in question now, but codeine works similarly just like tramadol. Codeine is in cough syrups and it's in APC. APC means aspirin, paracetamol, and codeine. So codeine is there. We have other opiates. And when we move on, there will be other ones. We have the hospital workers abusing pethidine. We know these things they are abusing fentanyl. These are there. So they are being abused. So
now, what I wanted you to zero in on for me, Doc, is whether or not we're dealing with an epidemic? Because you did mention that, and I wanted a certain scientific backing to the statement that we are having an epidemic on our hands now.
So the challenge is that we have epidemic in the West.
Okay.
We have no data in Ghana to establish so. Okay. So do we claim that because we don't have data, even though we've seen people being arrested with higher doses, we've seen young people coming with the side effects or the withdrawal effect of Tramadol. We should sit down and get the data before we intervene. Of course, no. Okay. I wouldn't want my son to die, my daughter to die of Tramadol before we say.
Okay.
But if you look at the clinical data, if you look at the hospital data, for example, who see the patients, the numbers are so alarming that we can conclude this epidemic. By saying something is epidemic, you need data. Okay. So government should start a database of drug abuse, just like we have for the one for HIV. Anybody who tests for HIV, anybody who tests for TB, the government, we have, records of whoever is testing for TB, for HIV. So we should have something like that for drug abuse, so that we know that anybody abusing Tramadol.
And by this, you're saying legal drug abuse?
No.
I mean legal drugs.
Drug abuse. So the drug can be either licit drug or an illicit drug.
Okay.
Because addiction is a disease. That is the challenge we've not yet realized in Ghana.
Okay.
It's a disease like asthma or hypertension. It's a chronic disease.
Right.